So everybody can see the screen, right?
Yep.
So Collins has this dream for what we have is a studio tool that allows students to submit work and critique others. And he has a redesign for it that he's been waiting for a number of years. So this is why it's particularly painful that we wait until after he leaves that I get to show this. But this is the dashboard as a web component to it based on his mock-ups. And this, of course, would be a student portfolio, but I filled it in with cats and cat names for the data instead of student names, just because I want to see his reaction when as I do this, everything is a cat reference, since he does not like cats. But what you see are a card that gives the students overall progress, and when you load this, it will actually animate. A little card that has links with work due. And the nice thing about this is that the link text is actually just the heading part. But if they click anywhere on the card, the actual real estate that the link takes up is the whole section here. And that way you can have very accessible link and button text and still have some of the additional data as Aria described by us. And then they have, a card that's blank with recent activity and a couple of other cards that are down here for recent work and recent comments coming from their peers. What I did though was I figured that a lot of this stuff could be reused elsewhere. So I made those their own components. So I have, here's nav card, and nav card has the ability to add link text or button text. It's using progressive enhancement to drop everything in there. And I also have, this is progress-dounut. It's actually reusing everything that I had in the Chartist library and the LRN design chart, and just doing a specific type of donut chart and making sure that there's an image that's in the middle of it. So those are the things that I worked on. I don't really have much to talk about how they're done, because it's basically just a rehashing of simple colors and extending components. But I think what this illustrates is that everything that we build can be reused into other applications. And anything that I've been building, even though I haven't gotten to his studio until now, and I've been working in the department for 3 years, everything I've been building is actually just feeding back into this studio project. And so, so what's nice is I can be working on any project and it helps other projects.
Yeah, like when I disrupt you and say, hey, I need a card selector. So are you going to be able to use the card selector in this, I guess would be my question about it.
I haven't run into it yet, but I mean, I'm just at the dashboard phase. But if you're saying, can you use this as an excuse? I mean, I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't do. If we use it though, the mock-ups will, the little demos are definitely going to be full of cats.
What's the usage, the example look like for that progress data? Like how does that end up rendering? Because I could totally see that being useful for like XAPI data visualization, or like how far you're moving through material, something like that. Well,
what I have in here for progress-dounut, it's still using the Chartist and LRN design chart library. Chartist is the one that's like it doesn't use our color schemes. It's just the way the Chartist stuff works out of the box, and the LRN design ones use our scheming and simple colors. But what this is doing is it's basically taking data in here. Here's the array of complete items, and there's a total. And so all it's doing is filling out the % complete out of the total then for each one. You could just do one thing, but then I don't have the animation for that. Part of the reason why is it had to do with how the SVG animates, and to be able to line the SVG up with the image, I had to do the animation differently from the Chartist demo.
Gosh.
But I thought, like, this works as, you know, lessons in an overall course, or
Yeah, no, I immediately was thinking that.
I mean, this one doesn't animate, but it, you know, still works.
Doesn't animate yet.
No, like, I mean, I'd have to solve that problem. But yeah, so you can set when you want the animation, how long you want it to last, and when it delays. And I have it doing the math to figure out, you know, how to time that animation accordingly. So if you know something's going to take a while to load, you could adjust the delay. But yeah, and then this is it on dark and light backgrounds using our color schemes.
I would probably make the animation pegged to an intersection observer as opposed to any timing. Because that way as you scroll down, you would actually see it animated as you start to scroll down to draw you to it.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you update, will it reanimate?
Yeah, if it updates, it should reanimate, because it's using the onDraw object on Chartist. So the animation is tied to when that chart redraws itself. Our data, as the data changes, it should change. Now, the only thing about this one is it's not using the progressive enhancement, because I didn't know what kind of, while the Chartist and LRN design chart can use progressive enhancement, I didn't know what kind of data I would want to convert into that. Like whether we should do that as a table, or if it's a list of items with a total. I mean,
yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is there some way of getting that color data either in or out so that you could have a little list below it to be like purple 10% represents, you know, whatever.
So that's another thing, like doing an actual legend is not part of the Chartist library, but that's also kind of on my list of things, is to pull that out. And I'm already creating this actually might still even have the table hidden in the background, because the other two components do, where you have the option to show the table below or hide it. So I could put those colors in the key with the table, and that might be the best way to do the legend, because if I have to try to drop it into the SVG, then I have to worry about where the other SVG items get drawn. But down in the table, and then having show table, or having a legend mode that shows the legend as a list if you don't want to show the table, might be the best way around that.
Yeah, I was thinking if you could you could make some composite that you dump in or point to a CSV file or something, and it presents it
right here.
Okay, it presents it as a table, but then also makes the table and legend match what the little data set thing is.
And because Chartist, the LRN design stuff I've done and the Chartist stuff will take a CSV file, it could do that. Yeah, those are already wired to do that. With this one, I'm like, do I need to hook something up that has it, or can I just pipe the data in? But I could potentially just expand on that one as well.
Yeah, that could be a cool, like, I don't know what that would be called. Maybe we I mean, it's worth revisiting and replacing some of that LRN design hyphen whatever the heck it is, because I mean, our mental model shifted 2 years ago from when we were thinking of naming stuff that way. But that could be, I mean, that could be killer if you throw it into hacks as a little, like, visualize this data type of a thing.
Yeah, and this is just one, like having those circles. You could do that with anything in the Chartist library, and how we want to render the data. All this gets you is it's basically giving you the picture and the animation, which the animation could have still been done in the other stuff, in the existing wired up Chartist stuff. So yeah, that is what I basically worked on this week, aside from the other stuff that I was doing with you.
Which I got working. You missed that part of the demo.
I know.
thing. So now that works in Drupal correctly. So.
And it's nice and pretty, isn't it?
It is pretty, yes.
See? Now we just need to get me onto Hacks theming.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop
maybe
sharing.
11D theming.
You know, I keep thinking, you know, maybe that's the better way for me to try to develop a Hacks theme,
Maybe.
I'm just trying to
Not
find a good.
sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the best workflow to be able to do that.
It might be. I mean, from a prototyping perspective, Mike, what do you think? Because the issue that we're running into is the same one we've had with students and the same one Andrew had, right? It's like, hey, I want to add this custom element. Well, if you do it via a normal way, like the way that we do our build routines, it's simple. But the intermediary step where you're doing the development, but you need an environment that actually is responsive, is really clunky to get wired up.
Yeah, I'm definitely having issues with that part of it.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Still muted.
Muted. I think the developer experience for the 11D is a little bit better, just because it's built on the ESDev server. If we're doing like the import maps, that makes it even easier. That really eliminates a lot of the build step headaches. So
yeah, I wonder if we could have just a alternate version of that's almost specific to theme development, that you run some command and it has your entry point be slightly different. If we have divergence with the import maps thing.
Or at some point, you guys need to give me some quality Nikki time to get me going.
I do, yes. That can be next week.
Plus, like, they're developing all this really beautiful shit, and I want to know where it's hiding so I can touch it.
Who, me? Or
yeah, you and Chuck are developing cool stuff that I don't get. I mean, I get to see it here, but it's like, oh, look, here's something that's really nice and pretty, and you can't have it.
Right, she wants that theme, which I will also be curious to see how the new loader and the import timing stuff impacts the performance of the ODL theme. I see. Because it should tick it up a decent amount.
Yeah. That's a good question. I didn't show it, but Chuck did revamp like a one-page site in the 11D model, just by going and grabbing old elements from that theme, not the theme itself, but elements within the theme, and he did it pretty quickly. So I'll have to see how his whole experience was on Monday.
And Bob, just from like a workflow perspective of like the way that they've worked on that theme, Chuck was kind of off on an island working in some other repo, and then we're like back and forth with the main repo getting fixes in, and then it's still its own thing. But honestly, Nikki, I think if we renamespaced it and you converted some stuff away from Polymer to lit element, we just pulled a whole stinking theme into the LRN components repo. I mean, that theme's just fantastic. I don't know how you make it generic enough that it's not exclusively ODL, because there's probably
I'm good at that, at making shit scale. Like at making the options scale. It usually takes me a long time, but I think about all the possible ways it could be customized.
I know. And Collins wasn't here, so now he doesn't know how far you are in progress of that. You can just make it up, I guess.
It sucks to be Collins.
He's going to think all of his students have to be renamed to cat names.
Nobody tell him about the cats.
That would be a really good...
This is going to be an even better gag to get more of it done in cats.
So there's a thing for you, Nikki. I like giving you ideas for the thing to work on for next week, right?
Yeah, because you hate me.
Yeah, so in Elms, there's a thing called FERPA filter. And FERPA filter is a very specific class that when something activates FERPA filter globally, it blurs out data that is privileged data, right? Like student pictures, names, things like that.
You mean you want a cat filter?
Already.
So evil. This is so evil and wonderful. And can we just call it like the Collins FERPA? No, fur, F-U-R.
Oh. There you go. See, I knew you would love the idea.
But we can call it secretly Collins mode.